Now this is a little different. In this case, and in the cabinets that we did, I simply used some plywood. And I used a 5-ply. It actually equates to about the same thing. Because in the same token, as I did with the homemade, I've got a vertical grain, end grain, vertical. And I actually wind up with about the same amount of material. Now, somebody's going to ask, can I just take a piece of the cross grain and glue it to one vertical grain? No. And the reason for it is that if you look at plywood, you're going to always notice you've got a flat grain end, flat end, flat. You have to, but this is a 5-ply, but you've got, it's the glue line. The glue line in there, you have to keep them even or it's going to warp and cup and twist on you. Okay. Now, this isn't the best plywood in the world, I'll tell you that. But for demonstration, it'll do. But again, this piece right here and here, these are, as far as I'm concerned, sacrificial. I've got it on here just to keep from getting tear out. I want a nice clean cut. Now you can also do this with a router bit. I've done it with, you know, just a nice flush trim router bit coming up through my router table. You could probably do it to some degree with a bandsaw. But one of the keys is try to do all of a grouping together. In other words, if you're going to be doing inside and you need 4, try to do those 4 together. That way, if you get off anywhere, the least little bit or whatever, then who cares? You know, everything's still going to line up. Okay, let's cut it. Now the first step is I always start in the center. And I'll show you why just in a second. But I have it laid out here in my center of this. And I'm just using a regular miter gauge to cross cut it. Now, if you've got short ones and you don't have something here that's going to give you a good foundation to hold on tight to, you can also add an auxiliary fence. You could use a table slide, or you can just simply, to be safe, secure it with a clamp. Just make sure that you've got a good reference here to hold with. That's why we're starting in the center. We'll see in just a minute. Let's cut this. Now we're going to cut our shop-made plywood. It's a little different. Now I want you to notice something. On this narrow piece, when I cut this is force of habit. I went forward and I came back. The reason for that is this is so narrow, I can hold good and firm here. This piece being wider, when I go across this, and it's a natural reaction, when I go across this, when I pull back, we always have a tendency to let up. And because this is buried inside there, if I let up and I allow this piece to twist the least little bit, it's going to try to kick back. So I just don't do it. All right, once I've made a cross cut in the center, now I'm going to go to my jig. Now all this is is just an auxiliary fence attached to a miter gauge. Nothing more. Just a piece of wood. The only thing I've done, and you can tell this one's cut a few, is I've got this little arm on it. It's nothing more than an index arm. Now the way this worked, the only thing I did was to cut a little notch in it, screwed a little block into it. This is 3/4 of an inch wide. Now the way we're going to cut these is by setting this right over top, or notch right over top of that. Now this same technique you can use to make box joints, dental molding, or dentile, ever how you want to call it. It's the same thing. But what this is going to allow us to do is just keep indexing. Okay, you'll see more of what I'm talking about just in a second. And it works really nice. Let's cut it. Okay, now I'm getting down close, and I'm getting out here to a point I don't want to be. I don't want to be out here trying to hold this and all this hanging out here. That can be dangerous. So at this stage, you notice I extend out. When I get to this point, that's where I've got a clamp, and I'm going to let it do the holding. And I run it. And I'll finish this out, and we'll take a look at what we got. I want to mention one last thing. Be constantly aware that this dado is coming back through on the back side of this jig to get a through cut. Now the other thing you could do, just to be a little bit safer, I've done this a time or two, and I know to watch, but you could also attach a block back here so that that blade is constantly covered. Be careful. Okay, I got them all cut. Now the other thing I do is I just simply take a regular drill bit with a countersink, and I usually just put 1, 2, 3 screws. But like I told you in the beginning, just enough to hold it to the case. You don't have to get crazy with that. If you're particular in your setup, you can also wind up making and do your spacing a little more tighter. You can also do make your box joints, or you can do your notches deeper and make your dental molding. It does nice. Now you'll notice we didn't get much chip out, much tear out. Everything looks nice. That's simple, guys. Not hard. Makes nice shelf supports. I'm Charles Neal. Catch you later.